So today I am explaining how you can easily set up your Mac OS for React Native iOS development and Android development in the same time. It is very easy to set up, but if you trying to install first time, that is maybe difficult. It can be difficult to set up first time because of there is a lot of dependencies and with React Native site, it is not completely mentioned why you are trying to install those dependencies. Okay, so if I follow this article that is mentioned in React Native development site, and basically my team follows React Native CLI with CLI for build process, build steps, and we set up Mac OS systems. We and I will try to set up in the Mac OS system. So basically there is a lot of dependencies issues happened with me and with my time. So I'm gonna explain every steps why Watchman is necessary, why node install with different way. So that you can understand what is the difference between node with installations with brew and with nvm. So there is a slightly different setup process, but it can be like lot more easier to set up, and each once you see the process, it will be very easy to set up in your own Mac OS. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so moving forward, I will explain every steps, what dependencies I will install, and why that is necessary to install in different way. Okay, so before I moving forward, I am installing these dependencies as a completely fresh system. So like if you have already Xcodes, you don't need to again reinstalls. Just see what's happening and understand what why those dependencies is necessary. Okay, so in the Mac OS, Xcode is first dependencies you have to installs. So you can install from app stores, and you can also install from following this link. Basically if you follow this link and download from here, like there is multiple different versions Xcode, and you can download this xip file, and you can store it later for later. And if you want to share this xip file to for another users, you can also do that. Like I have multiple developers, and so I need to share xip files every time, and this is large files, so I have to store those xip file, and I can share then later. Okay, so even I sometimes in newer versions different error is happening, and even I can switch to older versions Xcode. So basically sometimes it needed, sometimes not needed, so completely based on your requirement you can download from here on, and you can also install from app stores. Okay, so next point, you can read these articles also. I explains most of the points here, and next, oh my JD is basically a JDC plugin that is uh, more developer friendly. You can see like my terminal. Okay, so if I move into some git directory, it will show branch name, current branch name, It will also a lot of actually ton of functionalities, and you can also configure your terminal style, terminal auto completion. So if like this, basically it will minimize, it will improve your productivity. Okay, so once this plugin is installed, it will create a jdc file. And by default in Mojave, Mojave has built-in jdc by default jdc terminal. So you have to, you can configure jdc terminal from these files. Okay, so like next steps is you have to install, you can install jdsh by running these commands. This is basically a open source dependencies. So everything is actually all dependencies are open source. So oh my jdsh, and you can see the installation steps from here. Okay, and there is a ton of functionalities, so you can install different plugin, different functionalities if required for you. Okay, so OMI JDSH is optional, but you if you don't want to install, you also can create in the home folder in the you can also create a .jdshRC file in the home folder. This sign is basically a locations of home folder, current user directory. And once you create this file, you can add some path like Java home path and multiple path. And so moving forward, next point is you have to install homebrew. So homebrew, like if you already already know about like Linux system, and you can install multiple software with apt get, a similar kind of in Mac. Homebrew is a kind of maybe similar to maybe like with homebrew you can install multiple softwares. Okay, and so with homebrew we will install multiple software. And but home by default, home for homebrew installations, but by default in the Mac, homebrew is not available. Okay, you have to install homebrew with these commands. Okay, and once you install homebrew, so next point is you have to install node. And here is a small difference with React Native instructions, like here mentioned. So here mentioned brew install node, by I am suggesting you have to install node with nvm. Why it is different? Because you maybe you need different node versions for different project. With nvm you can easily switch with same time, you can use node versions, different node version in the same time with different terminal. Okay, so just you can see the nvm documentations in github document. Like you can see a lot of information like nvm use. You can now you can use node 16, and even suppose you have two terminal. Okay, one terminal you run nvm use 16 and nvm use and another nvm use 14. So you can actually use two different node versions in the same time, but with brew node it is impossible. Okay, so next once you install nvm, by default by default script nvm installation script automatically modify .zshrc file so that nvm path works perfectly. Once nvm installed, this command is mandatory to update system paths, and once you update system paths, you can then install node 16.16. okay, and it will be installed quickly. So if you installing node versions first time, then by default it is your default node versions. okay, and you can also switch different node versions. Then you have to install watchman. okay, by running this command brew install watchman. okay, so I mentioned here first Android dependencies, because Android dependencies needs Java versions, and iOS dependencies also, I think few dependencies has Java dependencies. So you have to install JDK by this command, and it is very easy. So once you installed, you can check that Java installed properly with this command, and once with this command it actually returns path where it is installed. okay, once you get the locations, then you have to you have to add Java home in your system path, and this actually commented this here a little bit code is incorrect, so make sure you have type correctly. So just copy paste in ZSHRC file, and once you modify ZSH file, you have to update again with this command source ZSHRC. okay, and once Java installed, you can download Android Studio from here, and once you downloaded and Android Studio downloaded, you have to install emulator, and once your Android Studio downloaded, just clicking on few times with next button, it will be installed some dependencies for Android development for build APK file, and you have to install also Android emulator with virtual device manager options. Then I am moving forward to iOS dependencies. Again in the React Native side, there is no anywhere mentioned like we have to install Ruby. So but Ruby is needed for React Native development. Here Ruby can be installed. Ruby is actually installed in the Mac by default, but React Native needed a different Ruby versions. okay, so you have to again, like nvm, you can also multiple version Ruby, you can also install multiple Ruby in your system and for different project. So you can simply install rvenv with some commands. okay, so first install brew install rvenv and Ruby build. Once it is installed, this command is necessary to add in ZSHRC file. okay, once you install once you modify ZSHRC file, you have to again run this command, and once you run this command, then your actually rvenv command will work, Then you have to install RVNB install 2.7.5. It basically installed Ruby 2.7.5 and some dependencies. Okay, so then you have to globally set Ruby 2.7.5. then you have to install Cocoapods with these commands, and uh, then you can create a React Native project. And once your project is created, go to iOS folder from terminal and then run pod install command. Okay, so pod basically with this command some dependencies will download it, and in this is completely different with node npm dependencies. So pod install installs for some dependencies for actually iOS. Okay, so then you have to open actually manually this file. I am not sure why why it is not opening. So you have to open manually and then you can run npm run iOS. And if you need Android build, so you can run npm run Android. Okay, so all done, have fun.